In today's session of the Purple Coffee Podcast, I interview Srinivas Rao and something called The Chase of Intrinsic Value, and mention my Kickstarter campaign, I Love You, the Forever Free novel once more. Welcome to the Purple Coffee Podcast, inspiring stories from creative entrepreneurs. I am your host, Turndog, and this is session 5. In today's, I interview Srinivas Rao, who is the man behind the unmistakable creative, formerly known as Blogcast FM. He has interviewed so many people, ranging from like 400 to 25,000 billion, I think it is, and he knows a great many people. He's interviewed a lot, and for once he was on the other side of the interview, and I personally was interviewing someone who's much better interviewing than I am, so it was all scary overall. But we talked about mistakes, because it was all in aid of The Success Mistake, a little book of mine. And yeah, it was pretty amazing. But before that, I would just like to mention once more my Kickstarter campaign for I Love You, the Forever Free novel. If this is your first time on the Purple Coffee Podcast, you won't have heard of my Kickstarter campaign, I'm guessing. And basically, it's my third novel, and my aim is to have it free forever. Yes, that's right. I will write an entire novel and then give it away for no pounds and no pence, because I'm a little bit mad. But there's reason in my rhyme, and it's all displayed on the Kickstarter page. So you can head over to turndogmillionaire.com and follow the link, or you can head over to that page directly by typing in bit.ly/kickstart-the-on-love. And there's videos on there explaining I Love You's plots, the reason I'm making it forever free, and all the various ins and outs, including how you can share the unlove and pledge from just £1. There's only 2 pledges, so it's super simple, ridiculously so, and hopefully when you've finished reading it you won't think I'm quite as insane. So please do that at some point. It would be great to have you join this band of merry misfits. But now let's move on to the juicy part of this session and my interview with Srini. What a cool guy he is, and he found a great deal of value by stop worrying about what others thought and started putting more value on what he thought and the intrinsic value. Stop chasing the big important guest, in other words, and just focus on finding people who inspire you, because if they inspire you, they're probably going to inspire other people as well. And I think as an entrepreneur, you will take a great deal from this, because no matter what your business is, there's going to be extrinsic pressures coming at you from all directions. You're going to be putting value on getting this kind of degree, this kind of job, working with this particular client. And all that's basically nonsense, because we should be just following a path that feels good, talking about your gut here, people. And Srini's advice is 100% golden. So I'll stop my chit chat and we'll get straight into the interview. But not before I introduce Srini in a way only me and my storytelling mind can. So I've got my iPhone here and I've made a few notes and a little tale or two. So I'll put my eyes on this and read directly from it, which I know is bad form for camera, but you know, whatever. The man they call Srini is someone you never forget, mainly because how can you forget a name as cool as Srinivas Rao? Famed for his podcast, The Unmistakable Creative, formerly Blogcast FM, Srini is interviewed somewhere between 400 and 633,000 inspiring entrepreneurs, authors, creatives, and general change makers. However, do not think the man they call Srini is a mere podcaster. Oh no, for he writes from the heart, shares stories in a unique and quite frankly remarkable storytelling way, and has a knack for bringing people together and leaving them hooked on inspiration like I am on coffee, which is a lot. I can't imagine what his business card says or what he tells people he does at an event of some kind. It's probably something like, I'm Srini and I do unmistakable things, and then walks off like it ain't no thing. So here's that interview. Yeah, I just said that. too. I'm delighted to be joined today by Srinivas Rao, who is the owner of theschooloflife.com and also the man behind Blogcast FM, which is a fantastic resource full of interviews with, well, some of the web's greatest minds. And I know that I've taken a lot of inspiration from that particular site. So, Srinivas, welcome and thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Well, before we kick into this interview, which is all about coming over adversity and mistakes, and it's in aid of a successful mistake, as those followers will probably know by now, please just give us a bit of an introduction into who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, I guess I'll try to make it brief just so I'm not sounding like a broken record. But as you mentioned, I host Blogcast FM, where I've interviewed about 400 bloggers, authors, entrepreneurs, people like Guy Kawasaki, Tim Ferriss, Seth Godin, and also a lot of interesting people that you wouldn't necessarily consider famous, but just ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And it's been quite a roller coaster ride and an interesting journey, and it's brought me to doing work that I never thought I would do, and getting to create all sorts of cool stuff, and connected me with all sorts of interesting people. So that's a short version of it. Like I said, I mean, I can go into a lot more depth if you want, but that's at a high level what I've been up to. It all kind of started by accident in a lot of ways, just because I couldn't find a real job, so I had to make one up.
Well, it's how the best ones always start, and I know that it's kind of led you into writing, and you've also even started doodling. I've noticed on Facebook you're starting to get into the drawing, which is very cool. And I think you've taken a bit of inspiration from Mars Dorian, is that right, with some of his?
Well, I think it's probably a combination of a lot of people. Mars definitely is one of them. My former business partner, David Crandall. What really spurred it, actually, what finally got me to say, okay, you know what, I want to do this. There's a girl named Karen Cheng who had written a blog post about how to teach yourself design even if you didn't go to design school. And I'd always wanted to learn how to draw. But in her post, she talked about, this book called 30 Days to Learning How to Draw. And I thought, well, this is cool. I have a blog called The School of Life, and usually I've just been talking in theory. I'm like, what if I really said, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to take on learning missions. And I'm working on a startup called Academy on the Go now, which is all about skill development and habit change. And I thought, well, what if I decided to start teaching myself things? And drawing was one of those things. I was like, I'm a pretty awful drawer, but what if could I get better at this? Like, if I actually sat down and I made an effort and actually looked at some resources, if I gave myself 30 days, what would happen? And so yeah, it's been fun. I mean, it's I think in a lot of ways it's opened up another side of expression that I hadn't really thought about before. And I mean, I'm doing it more for myself than anybody else. It's kind of one of those things that gives me, because the thing is that, like, there's no pressure to be good, right? Like, there's no pressure because I'm kind of like, everybody expects me to suck, and so that makes it, so the improvement is just kind of fun. You're not trying to do it for anything else other than to challenge yourself, to see. The only person I'm competing against with it is myself, and so it's been a lot of fun.
Very cool. And I'm really interested with the progress, because I'm like you, I cannot draw, but I love the idea of design. I love working with things like Photoshop, and I'm not a particularly talented designer, but I love when I can to do my own sort of posters, my own designs, my own book covers. It is a very interesting process.
It's been fun. I mean, look, I don't plan to sell my art or anything that I would do professionally for commercial purposes. I would hire an artist to do, but it's been fun to just understand the process, and I think it actually bleeds into other things that I do creatively. Yesterday I drew probably one of my favorite drawings of a guy on a skateboard. And I'm not, I don't really skateboard, I surf, but it was really kind of fun to put in details and to try and draw wheels and to draw edges and to try and make him do things that I wanted him to do. And that was probably my favorite drawing that I've done so far.
And like you say, it's the whole idea of getting the creative juices in your brain ticking.
Exactly.
And I know that you put on one of your blog posts today, I think, or yesterday, the idea of it helps you with your writing, because once you kind of get that side of your brain working, it's much easier to sort of put it into other aspects of life, which I suppose is a little bit off topic of what we're covering, but at the same time not, because it is that idea of sometimes putting yourself out there, making mistakes at things you're not good at, but it helps you get good at other things. It helps you maybe inspire things that you are talented at, such as writing or whatever it may be. So yeah, I'm very interested to follow that, and those who are out there in the internet world should definitely check out and see how you progress, because by the time this goes online, you'll have probably finished your little task, but I'm sure you'll carry on drawing and sharing it with the world. So yeah, I must say I'm really intrigued to hear about how you come across with your mistake and the journey behind that, how it went down, and where you've taken it from there. because, like you say, you've done around about 400 interviews with some really amazing minds, and I know that I've sort of come across some people through Blogcast FM and just been like, wow, these people are doing great things, whether they're famous now or famous in the future. And I'm sure you've kind of bit of trial and error you've learnt along the way, and it's led you to numerous things. So please tell us your tale behind the mistake and how it all came about.
It's really, I mean, there's so many mistakes. It's kind of a landmine if you really want to go into it. But I think if we can really characterize it as a mistake, I think my mistake, really, the big sort of way to sum it up, is I was caught up in what I call the ego-driven pursuit of a life that looked good on paper. I wanted the big names on my resume. I wanted I wanted all the external accolades more than I wanted the work itself. And of course, the result of that is that it all came crumbling down like a house of cards and kind of blew up in my face, because I got out of business school and I realized, wow, I've spent the last 10 years of my life chasing these external accolades, but I don't know how to do anything. And of course, up until about 2009, it was simply enough to get a degree and get out of school, and there would be job offers waiting. All you had to do was apply for them, and somebody would, bite, hopefully. Yeah. Obviously, things have changed quite a bit. Like, you actually have to know how to do something. So in that sense, that really was one of my sort of aha moments. And I said, wow, this is a big failure. It really is, to have spent so much of my life in pursuit of things that are not very meaningful. I think was my real failure. I mean, of course, in that there are a lot of sub failures of getting fired from just about every one of those jobs, and also I was not happy. I mean, I'll be, it's weird because you can go through life in that state and you can almost sleepwalk and you don't even realize you're unhappy because you're comfortable. And I think comfortable is a very, very dangerous place to be at a certain level. Like, I think that to keep growing, you have to keep pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Absolutely. I think that bit of risk and them challenges always kind of coming across you, biting at your ear, it keeps you going, And like you say, being comfortable, it might be good from a financial aspect, or, you're paying your mortgage, but you can find yourself getting in a rut. Yeah. And I've always found that when I get into a rut and it kind of sneaks up on me, it might be like 6 months before you realise, and you're like, how do I get out of this now? And it is really difficult. And whether that's health related or maybe in a relationship or, your social circles at work, whatever it might be. And I must say, I'm guessing your external accolades in your sense were more going to things like business school, trying to get the qualifications, trying to get the prestigious companies on your CV. But this can transfer over into a business owner as well, because you can spend so much time trying to get that big brand, or trying to get the big name if you're running your blog, to get these interviews, and just pass over so many amazing opportunities with maybe either small guys but who are doing amazing things. I'm guessing you've come across some amazing stories through Blogcast FM of people who maybe hadn't made it and they don't have 100,000 Twitter followers, but they still are sharing amazing stories, and you walk away going, wow.
Those are probably some of the best interviews, believe it or not. And it's trying to find people like that keeps me up at night in a good way. Because you're right. I think that it's very easy to sort of put people on a pedestal based on all these metrics. What we do, unfortunately, is we kind of look at the surface and we create our picture of what we think this person's life is like. And because and I've said this before in an interview, like, in the online world, you're getting a filtered and edited version of people's lives. And I think that we need to be much more aware of that than we really are at times.
Absolutely. Some of my favorite interviews have been from people who, maybe I hadn't known 6 months prior, just kind of stumbled upon. They don't have the massive ones. I know one of your friends, AJ Lee, and I interviewed him, and I just walked away from it. It was just like, wow. And I literally found out about him a week before, and it was a quick turnaround interview. But, he was someone who I hadn't known about. I now know that he's doing amazing things, but at the time I was like, well, I don't know if he's going to, what he's going to be like. But you walk away from it and you're just like, wow, that kind of makes an impact. You never know where that comes from. And sometimes you get so bogged down trying to go after the brand which you can put on your website, and people go, oh cool, he's worked with that brand, he must be good. Where in actual fact, you can get so many amazing projects by just working with people who are like-minded and doing amazing things.
Yep. Oh no, AJ is one of my absolute favorite people in the whole world. I mean, you want a guy to light a fire under your ass, talk to
Yeah.
AJ for 5 minutes.
Absolutely, that was kind of the interview. And I went away from his and looked at his Kickstarter campaign and that video, and then I was just like, man, it was annoying because I actually did quite a late at night interview with him. It was about 9 o'clock, I think. So I was just buzzing. I wanted the day to be at about 9 o'clock in the morning so I could just go at it. And I had to go to bed after that. And I was like, going to bed on a high, nothing worse.
Yeah. No, he's definitely one of those people who really does make you think.
Absolutely. So I guess that it's helped you in setting up your own world, this idea of chasing, these external accolades, as you put it, because it's probably made you look at what you do and go, I don't need to go after the big boys. When I get them, great, it's fun, but it's about finding the right people. And I always talk about trying to find your right customer or your right client or the right individual, whatever it may be. It's not necessarily the big person, it's just finding that correct one.
Yeah, it's a great point. I watched a documentary about Jon Stewart a few months back, maybe not even a few months, it's probably about a month or two back, about how he selects guests for The Daily Show and sort of how he's cultivated this brand. They say he's the most honest man in America. Like even Republicans watch The Daily Show, even though he rips on them left and right. But what really intrigued me was kind of what the selection process is for a guest on The Daily Show. And it's not always this person is crazy famous or, has written. It's not like Jay-Z is the only kind of guest. He brings in people that he personally finds interesting. And I try to think about that a lot in the way I choose people for Blogcast FM. Do I find them interesting? In fact, I was just writing about this the other day. Do I, does the story resonate with me? Like, do I connect to it? Does it move people as a group together forward more, even if one person is slightly changed? And if I feel that, then to me that's where I find some of my most amazing guests. But I saw this masterclass with Simon Cowell and Oprah, and he talks about how he kind of doesn't do research because he believes research kills creativity. And he says, he's like, I basically go with what I like because, if I like it, generally other people like it. And I kind of, I would say that's kind of been the approach to how I've chosen. And, and in the last couple of months, that's led to some tougher decisions. I've scrapped interviews. I've said no to former guests who I've had on the show because they're just not in line with my current vision. And so, yeah, I think that you're absolutely right that you don't need the biggest people. You need the right people. And there are going to be certain people that will just cause a conversation. You mentioned AJ. I mean, AJ and I have had some of the most moving conversations. Like the conversations I've had with him, I guarantee you have changed people's lives. And I was a speaker at his Misfit conference. I mean, he's one of those people that came into my life, and I'm kind of like, wow, this guy is like a gift from God to me. Like I where was he 5 years ago? Thank God. It's like I think AJ is one of those people that comes into your life, and he's one of those people who literally lights a fire under your ass. He makes you question a lot of things, and he holds you to a higher standard. And so that definitely has rubbed off on me in the way I choose my guests. I mean, I think it's changed the way I approach my work as more of an art than just it's not numbers driven. Like I'm not so metrics driven. And it's funny coming from a guy who spends so much time in the online world interviewing people who do a lot of numbers based stuff. But numbers matter, but not as much as we think. Like I'm it's funny because I have this like you post a thing on my Instagram feed of a vision board. I said, yeah, I'd like 1 million listeners. I was like, well, why 1 million listeners? And it's not necessarily so I can say I have 1 million listeners, but here's the thing is there's, what I've seen is there's a ripple effect to generosity and a ripple effect to good things out in the world. I mean, Blogcast FM has grown steady and slow, and it's not, I'm not a story of somebody who started a year and a half ago. I mean, most of my guests, a good amount of them have been far more successful than I have. But at the same time, I've seen what happens when this message of the work that I do and the messages the stories that I share reach people. lives start to change. I get so many amazing emails from people who talk to me about how one of our interviews changed, and I thought, well, wow, if we reach 1 million listeners and 1 million lives change because of Blogcast FM, well, that's something to be proud of. Not I have 1 million listeners, but I've changed 1 million lives.
It's the impact. And I personally find I approached, this book in a similar thing. In the beginning, I was very driven by, and I could get this person. It'd be fantastic to be able to put this person's name to it. But after I started doing it for a few weeks, and I realised that some of my favourite discussions were with people who, 90% of the individuals out there wouldn't know, I started to realise, actually, it's just about finding people who inspire me, people who I kind of read about and discover and go, yes, I want to, unearth their things. I think it makes for honest work. And I think when you're honest and you're really putting yourself out there, your true greatness will come out. And we'll take it again back into like the business world. You find a new client, you're working on a project with them. If it's a big client, which is going to make you look good, but it's a project you're not going to enjoy, I feel it'll come across rather flat. But if you're working with maybe someone who's smaller, who 90% of people won't know about, but you absolutely love it and you need to be involved, your best work's going to come out of that, and you're just going to absolutely blow it away, and people will be impressed, and that will lead to greatness. Maybe not immediately, but as the months and the years trickle by.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think it's very, very clear. It's kind of like going on a date, right? People can tell if you're not into them. The chemistry just isn't there. Like, no matter how much you try to force it, you're not into it. You're not into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does have a massive impact. And I'm guessing it has all stemmed from this mistake of you were chasing these sort of big qualifications which would make you look good. But then when you get into the real world, it feels fake.
Well, and it's funny because I did it in the online world too with the projects that we're talking about. In the beginning, I was very driven by a lot of those things. I wanted the external accolades. I mean, and I got some of them. It's like, hey, pro bloggers list of bloggers to watch in 2011. I started out as a blogger to watch in 2011. I sure as hell didn't end up as one. I mean, by the end of 2011, I was, my whole world fell apart. I lost the day job that I had. I wasn't, wasn't like on the rise to stardom. I didn't have a blog that was making any money. I mean, things were bad. It was not ideal. It was definitely kind of like, holy shit, what happened? I definitely, all those predictions about somebody to keep an eye on. It was like, yeah, go look somewhere else for somebody who's up to something.
But it does show that people do bounce back from these things, and I love the angle you've come from, because once, and I've spoke to a few people about it, where they try and conform to what they think they need to be doing. So you get into the blogging world and you think, I just need these big numbers. Big numbers mean, advertisement or social media shares or whatever it's going to be. But once you take a step back and concentrate on the content and the things that you're passionate about, it might take a little bit longer, but it usually drives much better results. And I think I see this a lot in the the real world, in brick and mortar stores or on online stores. Designers, whoever it might be, client-driven individuals, once they focus on their passion, their work, and they stop trying to worry about, getting the biggest and the best, that's when their work really comes out and you start to see them grow, maybe on a more organic and honest way.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I think that people can feel that, once you realize that people can feel everything that's in your work, because I think that we all have sort of, this is very new agey, which but there's an energy that goes into everything that you do, and I think that energy travels. You forget sometimes that just because you're behind a computer screen, that your words have energy. It doesn't mean that people can't feel everything that's coming across when you're writing. And I think that's been a fundamental shift for me in terms of the way I've been writing and the way I've been creating.
And that's interesting you bring that up, because I find myself going through that at times where I'll land on someone's site and it's clear they're good at what they do, because they've got a lot of followers, they've appeared on a lot of great things. It's clear they've got the accolades and they're good at what they do, but it comes across a little bit fake, as if it's, purely trying to just get money out of everyone. They're not really bothered about how they do it. And it is just, sometimes you land on a site and it's just a gut feeling you have. And I know that I make my best connections when I land on a site and I'm just like, I don't even care how many followers this person has. I can just tell they're doing amazing work, and these are the people who I want to follow. And again, I think this transfers into all walks of life. You gravitate towards people who, reflect with you and are like-minded. And once you step away trying to reach for those fake stars and you just focus on, producing the best, that's usually when the best actually comes.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt.
So going forward for you, I mean, you've obviously sort of taken a more honest approach. You've just sort of thought, I'm not so bothered about the numbers. Yeah, they're important. I'm going to keep an eye on them, but it's about just finding the right people. I'm guessing it is just improved all walks of life through your writing, through doing projects like trying to learn to draw. It's all got this honest and transparent feel where you're doing it for the right reasons within you, and you're not that bothered about, what it comes to, as long as it has some sort of benefit coming through.
I think what it is for me is that I'm finding the intrinsic value in everything I do now, and I never could see that before. It's just it's a lot more fun. It's liberating. It's freeing, and I think what it does is it starts to, like, the real creativity starts to come out, the stuff that only you could create, because you're no longer thinking, okay, how do I get this to X number of followers? How do I raise like my email list subscribers? I mean, yeah, those things matter to some degree, right? And it's funny because I think some people say, well, yeah, it's easy to be in the position that you're in and think like that, and then you kind of say, okay, well, you know what, I've been at this for 5 years, and it was only this year that I started thinking like that. So, and of course, I've worked for 4 or 5 years to have sort of some of those numbers in place, but the funny thing is that it's actually a small, it's a select group of sort of fanatical people who have really kind of been the driving force behind getting this to where it's at. And I always say, like, I came and connected all the moving parts, but a lot of other people played a much bigger role in Blogcast FM than I have. I'm the connector and the facilitator of the whole thing. It just, like, I have been the beneficiary of a lot of generosity. And then, I can't ever I can't forget that ever.
Yeah. And I love how you put it there, the searching for the intrinsic value, because I think that's something so many people can learn from. And there'll be people watching going, oh, it's easy for them to talk about their creatives, whether it's writing or drawing, whatever it might be. But I think this transfers across to, all matters of life, because if you enjoy what you're doing, and even if you're a very sales-oriented person, maybe your product or your service isn't too glamorous, you still have to force yourself to be creative at times, getting your word out there, doing it in a creative way. You can turn the most mundane task into something rather beautiful if you approach it in the right way. And once you really find that passion in there and, sort of find something which is a bit creative, a bit quirky, a bit out there, you can take it to new levels. But if you're just focusing on the money or the numbers or whatever it may be, it's hard to look past that wall into the the Garden of Eden, maybe, of creativity and actual exciting things.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that we become very attached to outcomes, and you don't know how anything is going to turn out. Like I've realized that there's no point in stressing. I would go and look at my sales numbers on Amazon every couple of days. I'm like, okay, this is driving me fucking insane, because my sense of self is fluctuating with the sales numbers. It was like, so I'm not going to look at it only, except once a month. That's enough.
Yeah, and sometimes it is a case of you have to put in that groundwork, because it is easy to say it when you've got 10,000 followers, and it's like, right, I can take a step back now. I don't have to focus on acquiring. I just have to make sure that I'm retaining. And obviously, to get to that level, you maybe have to do things, but you can limit it and say, right, I'm going to do that, but I'm only going to do it on this day a week, or I'm just going to check these numbers once a month. So I'm not obsessing over that. I'm still taking care of it, but I'm not obsessed.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was who told me this. They said there are almost no metrics that are worth measuring on a daily basis, which I thought was a very profound observation.
I think it's very true. I mean, I've been there with the Amazon numbers and with Google Analytics and all. You can get obsessed over any kind of number, and you step away and go, why the hell am I checking this 2-3 times a day? What's it doing to me? And if you just take a step back and go, right, I'm just going to do it one day a week or one day a month, it makes life whole lot easier. So yeah, I think a lot of people can get hung up on the measurables, and you realize after a while they're not actually that measurable in at all. It brings no real benefit. So before we end this fantastic interview and great insight on that initial mistake, which was ultimately at the very beginning of Blogcast FM and what you did with your life, what would you, just summing up, a couple of tips to those starting out, new entrepreneurs out there? They've got an idea, they want to make it happen. What tips would you give them?
Couple of things. One is don't bite off more than you can chew. Because people have, often they'll say, I have this big idea, but they have no idea how to get started because it's such a big idea. They're like, oh, well, it's huge. How am I going to get from A to Z? Here's the thing. Don't worry about how to get from A to Z. Figure out how you're going to get from A to B. And then you'll figure out how to get from B to C. So, break things up into bite-sized pieces. The other thing I would say is don't undervalue small ideas. Small ideas are often the spark. I mean, Blogcast FM started as a blog post, nothing more. That's it. It was like a weekly blog post, and it's turned into this. So that to me is the power of very small ideas. Like I mean, it's one of those things that if you pay attention to, you'll be kind of amazed by what happens. And the other thing is don't be so attached to how good you are at what you do. You'll get better as you practice. But if you're constantly obsessed with how good you are, I mean, it's kind of a fine line, right? Because you want to bring it every single time. You want to put forth the most effort possible, but realize that, yeah, you're probably going to suck when you start at anything, right?
Yeah.
But are you willing to suck long enough to get good at it? That's what you have to ask yourself.
Absolutely, and I can take certain things about because with my debut novel, I knew that if I wanted to try and make it 100% perfect, I would never release the thing. I had to, and I just had to make a decision. Is it the best thing I'm able to release right now?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, release it. Is it going to be something you'll look back on in 5 years' time and go, that is the peak of my performance? I certainly hope not, because I want to get better and I
Yeah.
expect to get better. But if you don't release things, whether it's a blog post or a product or whatever it might be, if you don't release it, you'll never get anywhere. But you have to accept that it might not be your best work right now because you will get better, but it takes a bit of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so thankful for your insight. It's been a fantastic one, and you are a bit of a slow-burning business where it's taken 3, 4, 5 years to get there, but it's shown that you don't need to be an overnight success to, bring it as you place it. So,
Right.
Fantastic insight. I'm sure those watching have absolutely enjoyed it. So, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Cheers.
There you go, folks. Session 5 of the Purple Coffee podcast. Inspiring stories from creative entrepreneurs is at an end. Thank you to Srini for being part of this and indeed for being part of The Successful Mistake. I'm so excited to eventually share this book with everyone because it has people like Srini sharing amazing, inspiring stories, and it shows that mistakes aren't that bad if you approach them in a correct way. And I loved Sweeney's take on things, especially his idea of intrinsic value. If we follow that, we really can't go wrong. And the growth Sweeney has seen from when I interviewed him several months ago to where he is today is phenomenal. It's outstanding, and I'm so proud of him and so happy to know him. And it all starts from this idea of focusing on intrinsic value. So you can do that too, whether it's personally, whether it's for your business. Stop focusing on the pressures from outside. Start focusing on what you truly want to achieve yourself, and good things will happen. It can be scary, but hey, what isn't in this day and age? And there you have it. Thank you for listening / watching. I would love it if you went to turndogmillionaire.com and checked out Session 5's page, because on there are all the links to Srini and his various websites. Be sure to follow him. You won't forget it. I tell you, you can thank me later. This guy will inspire you on a daily basis. And you can also follow the Purple Coffee podcast and be introduced to the next session before everyone else. If you like to watch on your laptop or TV screen, then you can follow the Vimeo channel. Or if you like to listen on iTunes, maybe on your way to work or as you drive a choo-choo car, then you can do so via subscribing to the iTunes channel. And of course, you can always get this sent to your inbox before everybody else by signing up to the mailing list. And all that information is on the page, and you can go there via bit.ly/purplecoffee5. That's simple. And that's all there is to it. Be sure to check out the Kickstarter campaign and join this band of merry misfits. I'd love to have you part of things and can't wait for the next session of the Purple Coffee podcast. Cheers and good night.